I just want to say welcome. This is Mastery Vibes Peer Support Unleashed. Like, you don't know me, you don't know Charlotte, but hopefully you're going to hang out at least once a month with us, but whenever you do. So, why Mastery Vibes? Why Peer Support Unleashed? Look, I want to say peer support has saved my life on so many times. Being able to chat with someone who gets it. And when I'm talking about peer support here, I'm talking about dealing with my mental health stuff. Because people get all weird about that. They're like, oh, that person has bipolar. Oh, that person has schizophrenia. Oh, that person's got, I don't know, borderline personality disorder, whatever it is. Once you get a label, people get a little weird around you and think, oh, maybe I have to be careful about how I have a conversation or what I say, or, you know, I'm going to do something a little out there. So, peer support's one of those things for me that being able to chat with someone who gets it, being able to talk about the things that are a little odd that happen in my life, and we'll share about those, and those things that are a little harder, or, even being able to laugh at the stuff the rest of the world might be like, what is that? That's like camaraderie. That's like getting that, hey, I really am normal. I mean, the hell's normal anyway? Like everyone's different, but so, my perspective of this peer support and talking about it, and, talking to peer supporters about how we engage and support others comes from my own lived experience of having a mental health diagnosis. I don't have like substance use issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had a good time with them sometimes, but it's like I can give or take it. Um, but we will have guests and stuff that talk about their stuff, but enough, me blabbing on for a little bit. Charlotte, hey, what do you want to say to get us going?
I just wanted to circle back when you were talking about the different mental health diagnoses. We do a lot of work in substance use as well. So I want to make sure that everybody listening, that's included in what we're talking about. And we're bringing on some guests who have that as their lived experience. And my name is Charlotte Armstrong. I'm Robyn's business partner, and I want to talk about family peer support and what that is and how it made a difference in my family's life. My family member who is struggling with poor mental health, she was introduced to the power of peer support, and I truly believe it's what saved her life. Meeting people who had something similar to what was happening for her kind of normalized that world where she thought she was the only one. But what was missing would have been a family peer supporter there to support me as I was trying to navigate this world of mental health. And it's not, family peer support is not about telling me how to fix my family member. It's really supporting me to look at how I'm managing, how I'm supporting myself on the good days as well as on those really hard days. So I'm really excited about this podcast because you're going to get both perspectives. You're going to hear from the individual, Robyn, that's my business partner, and then me on the family side. I know I'm smiling, Robyn, because I'm so excited. You know how many people have been bugging us to do this? It's been years and years, and now here we finally are. And yeah, we should have started it in COVID. I get that, but you know what? We're here, we're now, and I'm pretty excited.
Did you just shoot on yourself, Charlotte?
I
I
did
heard
shit
you
on
say
myself.
we should have started this. Hey, I don't know. We have a course called Getting Rid of the Shoulds. Maybe you need to come back on it again. Well, let's be real. Nobody needs anything, right? We're all just us. We're all showing up as us. And sometimes it's great to get a little more support than other times. And I was thinking while you were talking, right? Like I have my own experience of my mental health, but I also have, a dad who struggled. And so I just want to share a little bit about my story, right? Because when I was growing up, we moved quite often. We had lots of money, like millions. And then we were selling furniture, to be able to eat and do things like that. And I look back and I just thought we had this really exciting life that other people didn't get to experience. And so sometimes now, because, those of you who know me, and, many people know me and many don't, right? I move around a lot. I'm now living in my fourth country. I'm a bit of a nomad. If you haven't worked out, I'm an Aussie. Right now, I'm living in Canada. Um, well, this is 2025, so it depends on when you listen to this, but I've lived in New Zealand, I've lived in the US, and I just think I've had this amazing life. And I go, is it about my mental health, or is it that I learned to just get up and move quite often with my dad? I don't know. Sometimes I'm not sure. But when I think about this peer support stuff, right, I go, it's when I say mental health, I just want to say I think mental health is part of everything. I think mental health impacts everything and everything impacts our mental health. So Charlotte and I have this really cool business called Robyn Priest Live Your Truth. Hey, it wasn't my idea to call it Robyn Priest. That was Charlotte. I was like, let's call it Live Your Truth. But anyway, it's called Robyn Priest Live Your Truth. But when I think about it, we work with people in peer support that are working in mental health, working in the substance use world, working in workplaces, dealing with the stuff that comes up in workplaces. We've been doing stuff in like the human trafficking area. We've done stuff in the HIV world, the cystic fibrosis world. Peer support encompasses everything. And so when I start talking and I get, you might be able to tell, I get a bit passionate. Who you see here is the same person you'll run into on the street, right? I'm a little bit, woohoo, let's get this going. And so I think peer sport is this thing that just encompasses life. Like I know there's people who have intellectual disabilities doing peer sport. People who are dealing with different types of trauma, peer support, firefighters, police, like people working in call centers have peer support, farmers have it. It can be about supporting each other with anything where people have had some kind of shared experiences, and you don't have to have the exact same experience to be able to look at peer support. Like I still chat with people who have schizophrenia, my diagnosed bipolar, but we've had stigma, we've had discrimination, maybe we've had some of those things the world calls psychosis. I don't know. We're going to explore some of those a little more through this. But one of the things I realized is I want peer support everywhere across the world. And I want people who are involved in peer support to be great at what they do. And so one of my biggest focuses on how do we train people? Because we can screw it up just like any other, workers can, or, even people hanging out together, right? So for me, peer support can be a profession. It can also be voluntary, right? Don't get me wrong, it's the gamut of it. But I want to train people up and make sure they're supported when they're delivering peer support. But I mean, Charlotte, I'm taking all the airspace. Let me throw it back to you.
Oh, Robyn, as you can tell, we're very passionate about peer support. And while you were talking, I remember that time years and years ago when life was really hard in my family. And I had taken my family member to the emergency department, and they were really struggling with poor mental health and very agitated, really upset about being there. And the waiting room of the emergency department was packed with people, and all eyes were on our family because we were making a scene. And I remember looking up and seeing somebody that I'd gone to university with. And she looked me in the eye, and then she turned and walked away. And I thought at that moment, if there had been a family peer supporter there or an individual peer supporter there just to support our family, it would have made a huge difference, because not only did I start to feel more shame and blame, it added this layer to the rest of my family as like, what is happening? And so I love when hospitals implement peer support into that emergency department, just adding space for people who are struggling to be sitting with someone saying, hey, I've been here too, and can I sit with you while you wait to be seen? Yeah, that's where my head went, Robyn, that story, and it still brings back oof, it was a hard night.
I'm giggling, right? And I know you're talking about this. It was a hard night for you. But I also know that sometimes when we've got family and friends with us, we're like, can you just bugger off? Can you leave us alone to deal with our own stuff? Because you're making this big deal out of it and we're okay. And so I was giggling a little, and I know I probably, giggling mightn't be the best thing when you were being serious, but I think that peer support for families, has families get that, it's okay sometimes for us to take that little bit of space and chat with someone who can kind of be a little more getting it. So, I'll share a little weird story, and it wasn't about having family there, but it's about that piece about peer support. So, I lived in Alaska for a while, and I was running training for clinicians about recovery-oriented services and also peer support. And truth, all I could think about was killing myself. I know some people will go, did you really? Were you really? And I'm like, yeah. And I was there with, a couple of peer supporters as well. And I knew I wasn't going to talk to the clinicians about it, because if I did, chances were they would put me in handcuffs on a commercial jet and send me to the psychiatric institute in Anchorage. And I didn't want that, right? I really didn't want that. And so, I was finishing that training in the afternoon, and we were doing some more, the next day and the day after. And the peer supporters with me knew that I wasn't doing as well as maybe I could have. And they were just like, yeah, we're just going to hang with you. And I was like, bugger off. I just want to kill myself. And they're like, yeah, no, we're just going to hang out. And they hung out in my hotel room with me. And I was like, go away. And they're like, no, we're just going to be here. You can chat with us or not. And they were just there. And when I chatted with them, which wasn't very often because I was pissed they were hanging around with me, but they were just, they got it. They got why sometimes it feels like there's no point. And they were just there to listen and be with me. Now, I know that peer supporters working in different environments do have to share that information at times. This was a place where that wasn't a requirement in their job at the time. But it was that place of they got it. And someone said, yeah, I've felt like that before. And now when I talk to people, who are feeling that way, I go, yeah, like I've been there. I'm really glad I'm crap at killing myself. And people go, what? And I go, yeah, because I live this life where I get to travel the world. I get to talk about peer support and, I'm happy to share what got me through it if you want. But I'm also happy just to be here with you. And I remember chatting to a family member about that who was completely freaked out that I was thinking that way. And their response was something completely different. And being able to have that person who was just able to get it and sit with me and be with me was like the most amazing experience. I don't know, Charlotte, you got anything you want to say about like that from that family kind of peer support place?
As a family member, before I had peer support training, absolutely, you would have been thrown on that plane to Anchorage, and I wouldn't have listened to what you had to say because all I wanted to do was keep you safe.
Yeah.
And I wasn't hearing that your version of safe was not in the hospital. And I think that on the family side, our intentions are always with love and kindness, but sometimes we have not actually heard what the family member that we are supporting needs in that moment. And that was the biggest part for me to take ownership of. I don't have all the answers for my daughter. I don't have all the answers that she wants. I'm assuming that I know best as her mom. And sometimes I got it wrong. And that's where family peer support was so powerful for me because it was focused on looking at me and what was happening in my world. Because, Robyn, I was thinking like we all have our mental health stuff. Did I have anxiety around when life was really hard? Absolutely. Would I have told you I had anxiety? Absolutely not. I would have said, I'm fine. I've got this. This isn't about me. And the other thing I think about is that it's so unfair when we make the one person struggling the most do all the work. Because if I had worked on my anxiety, if I had worked on all of that fear, because a lot of decisions I made back then were fear-based, and I would have thrown you on the plane, absolutely. And then you think of how hard that would have been for you to come back from it, because that's not what you needed. And And I also want to say for everybody listening, if everything inside of you says that they need to get on that plane, I'm not saying don't do it, but I am asking you to have a conversation with the person to make sure that you're hearing what they need that will help them in that moment. Because what is that line that I'm going to turn it back to you, but that line that when you're talking with someone who's struggling, with whether they want to stay here, do you want to maybe share about that?
Yeah, like look, I want to be honest. We're going to have one of the podcasts and we'll talk more about this. But my thing with people is it that you really want to be done and dusted or and that's it? Or whatever's happening now just feels like you don't know a way through it. Like that opens up lots of conversation. But I also want to say, Charlotte, when you were talking about the family peer support piece and that piece about family peer support, particularly for adults, I know sometimes it can be a little different for younger people in different places, and we'll chat about that in a different podcast. But one of those things for me is that place about supporting families to get that they can actually take care of themselves too and think about their own wellness journey, however you want to call it, as to how they can like, be okay dealing with us. Because I know, if my mum ever listens to this, she'll go, you're a handful sometimes. And, my dad was too, right? And we've had many conversations now. My dad's passed about what she had to do to support him. And I think I wish there had have been that family support to support her, to be able to talk about how it felt for her, like how it really felt, not the PC version, but oh, this was tough, and what do I need to get through it, right? And I think that family peer support is a really cool thing for that we forget about. And one of the things I think about, and the reason why we're choosing to do this podcast together, right? Because there are many people out there going, no, we want to hear from the person with their own lived experience, and those family carer, whatever you want to call them, are over here. And for us, family is whatever it is to you, right? So it might be a friend, it might be a parent, it might be a sibling, it might be a partner, it might be a grandparent, whatever. But the reason we do this together is because I think we can both learn from each other. And we do a lot of peer supporter training. And I watch people go, I'd never thought about it like that. And I've heard people go, I'm going to go home and give my mum a hug and say, I love you. And I've also heard family members go, oh, I never even thought that you were pissed off or had your own view or just wanted to be heard. And so, well, that's the reason why we want to do these podcasts together. And I get, there's time to separate stuff, and I get we'll have our different kind of points of view. You just had me have this weird little bappy cough. I don't know what it was, but there you go. It's live. You get to hear the recording, but the video's going. So, but it is that place where I think we can learn from each other. We can respect our similarities and love them and be together with them. And we can respect our differences and agree that we will have differences at times. And that's the beautiful piece for me about doing trainings together and being able to talk about all of that. So as we go through these podcasts, there won't always be togetherness. Sometimes I'll do a podcast without Charlotte. Woo! Sometimes she might do one without me. She's excited too, because I talk a lot and I get animated a bit more than Charlotte does. But I think that's the place we want to come from, that we are actually often in this together, and sometimes we're just thinking about it a little differently. So sharing allows us to grow and learn from each other. And I think when I think about the values of peer support, lifelong learning and, like personal growth and development is one of those things we want to keep doing. So these podcasts for me are about taking peer support concepts, talking about them, sharing about them, so people who maybe have never thought about peer support hear about it, but also people who are working in peer support get to explore different things in peer support. So I'm really keen to hear from people out there who listen to our podcast. Hopefully there's millions of you, but whatever. Even if there's one person can make a difference in the world. But really want to be able to hear from you about what topics around peer support do you want to have? I have in my head a whole range based on, my experience in the field. It's like my first job in peer support was maybe 30 years ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's making me feel old, but I saw that look, Charlotte. Charlotte's so much younger than me. She's what, 7 or 8 months younger, and she tells me I'm so much older. Um, she's full of it. But like, I really want to hear from people what they'd like us to talk about too. So enough of me gibbering, and I may come back. But Charlotte, chat, please chat.
Well, there was a couple of things. First of all, I'm really happy that you're crap at trying to kill yourself, because you and I have this amazing life, traveling, going to different communities and introducing peer support. And that's where I wanted to talk, because there's not many places that have a lot of family peer support. And so one of the things that I'm hoping by this podcast is introducing all of you to what family peer support is. And if you're not having it at your organization or your community, why not? And I've been saying, why not family peer support for as long as we've had our business, Robyn, and we're seeing pockets of it show up. But then we were at a conference a little while ago, and there was like 1,000 peer workers and 5 family peer support. And I found them all. I was like, oh, my people. But that's that reality of it. It's just not out there as much as it could. And why not? And it was, you can tell I'm passionate about the family side of it. Gosh, if I had it years ago, it would have made such a big difference.
I've got to say, if they had that family peer support, maybe some of us wouldn't be as interesting. No, I'm just kidding, right? But I do want to say, like, families need support too, because they're dealing with us, but we're also dealing with our families. And I've watched some people like turn the way they support people around. I won't say who, but someone we know, I met them and went, oh, poor bastard, their son. I was thinking about their son, right? And they were going, oh, I do this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, poor bastard. And now they're this huge advocate for family peer support and have this amazingly different relationship with their son. And I don't say poor bastard anymore. I say, how cool is that he's got a mum that chats with him like this now?
I'm smiling at that story, and I was spending time with a family last week, and their son had been given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and the parents were, this is a death sentence. He's never going to be, like, this was the talk. And we started to talk about all the people that I know who are living a great life with that diagnosis, and then how many famous people live with schizophrenia and have this amazing life too. And I think they went away thinking, we have to change how we're talking about this in our house, because it is showing up as he will never be more than his diagnosis. And that's often where hope is lost. And like that part of, the poor bastard story for me is also how many families are introducing that narrative of you're never going to be anything other than that diagnosis that you were given. And I love when narratives change in a family, and that, they can have a great life, all of them, in spite of a diagnosis. And that's where we've seen lives change, and hope is found again.
Look, I just want to say I really appreciate people joining us today, right? Like, this is just like a start. I don't know. I hope you enjoy it. We'd love to hear what you think. where can people hear Charlotte? Because you're the techie, I'm the chat, but you're the person that'll tell people where they can tell us what they think, what topics they'd love us to chat about.
Yeah, and in the description of this, it shows our website, Robyn. But you can also just say, hey, listen, reach out to Robyn at robynpriest.com. That's the quickest way to find Rob. Or look at our websites and keep in touch. We look forward to hearing from you, and I'm excited for our next podcast.
Hey, Charlotte, don't cheat. You told them to find me, Robyn at robynpriest.com. But hey, for those of you who want to hang out with Charlotte more, it's Charlotte at robynpriest.com. Don't short circuit them all to me, because those family peer supporters might go, no, I'd love to chat with Charlotte a bit more. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. Tell us what you think. Tell us topics you'd like, and we'll see you again.